How was the ancient Egyptian government structured? In this video, we will answer that question, as well as learn how the ancient Egyptian kingdoms functioned and operated. To cover the ancient Egyptian government, it's best to start at its core, which is the Egyptian king. The ancient Egyptian government was completely centralized around the office of the king, known as the pharaoh in Greek. The Egyptian pharaoh ruled the land as an absolute monarch, being the supreme arbiter of justice, commander of the army, and also the Egyptian high priest. The office of the pharaoh was handed down via a patrilineal succession system, with the eldest son usually being the one to succeed his father. In theory, all of the activities that the Egyptian government carried out was led by the king, but in reality the king relied on thousands of administrators and advisors to carry out his rule. During the Old Kingdom, most of the highest officials were relatives to the pharaoh, but as the centuries passed, they were gradually replaced by a professional corps of civil servants. Directly below the pharaoh served the viziers, who acted as a sort of viceroyals. There were two viziers in the kingdom, one in southern Egypt and the other in northern Egypt. The viziers served as the hands of the pharaoh and were responsible, among other things, for keeping civil order, collecting taxes, maintenance of archives, and mobilizing troops in their assigned area. In order to govern the ancient Egyptian kingdom, both the pharaoh and the viziers were aided by many governmental departments that had their own chief administrators and hierarchy of officials. This included the overseer of the treasury, of armies, of granaries, of the king's documents, and so forth. The area that the viziers governed were divided into small districts called sepat, or nome in Greek. They functioned as miniature versions of the states, with their own treasury, court of justice, and local militia, and they were administered by local rulers called nomarchs, who were either appointed by the pharaohs or a member of the royal family. The legitimization of this complex governmental bureaucracy, centered around the absolute rule of the pharaoh, was heavily tied to the Egyptian mythology. Egypt's great temples were not only spiritual centers, but also economic powers, and many of the Egyptian officials both held priestly and secular titles, with the Egyptian king being both seen as divine and as the official high priest of all the country's religious organizations. And if you're interested in learning more about Egyptian mythology and how it was related to the Egyptian state, I recommend you to check out my video on Egyptian mythology, which will be linked to in the video description. When it came to administrating conquered regions outside of Egypt, the standard practice for ruling foreign lands were via local elites. This often took the form of sending conquered rulers or their children to Egypt in order to teach them Egyptian ways, and later send them back to rule their home regions as loyal advocate for the Egyptian cause. The last group that we will look at, and also the group that was the most vital to the ancient Egyptian government, were the Egyptian scribes. Literacy was highly valued in ancient Egypt, while the amount of people who could read and write likely never exceeded 1% of the population. Scribes were therefore highly valued and were often the sons of other scribes, and they often had the function of mid-level managers who gave orders, checked results, took records, and granted and denied permissions. Their work was essential to the survival of the ancient Egyptian government, since without people who were literate, the Egyptian government were unable to produce documents or keep records needed for the governmental bureaucracy to function. Thanks for watching. I'm Quillowing History, and if you wonder why my voice sounds a bit different, it's because I'm trying to remove the vocal fry from my voice. If you're a regular subscriber, I would appreciate if you could leave a comment on how it sounds. And don't forget that if you like this video and want to see more videos like it, hit the like, share and subscribe buttons.